Hello, and welcome to Hallo English. We're so glad you're joining us to practice your listening skills today.
It's great to be here.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Hallo English. And honestly, we are so happy that you are here with us today.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back, my friends, because today is another calm and cozy English conversation for your heart and your English practice.
My name is Ryan, and I will be here talking with you slowly and clearly. So please, relax and enjoy this conversation.
And I am Emma, and whether you're drinking tea, cooking dinner, walking outside, or just resting on your bed, thank you for spending your time with us.
Yes, thank you so much, because every time you listen and practice, even for a few minutes, your English becomes a little stronger.
That is very true, Ryan, because small steps really do matter, and language learning is all about small, daily practice.
You do not need perfect grammar, perfect pronunciation, or perfect vocabulary to enjoy this conversation and improve your English.
You only need patience, curiosity, and the courage to continue learning little by little every single day.
And if our conversations help you feel relaxed and confident while learning English, please support Hallo English with a like and a subscribe.
Yes, and you can also leave a comment later and tell us where you are listening from or how your day is going today.
We always love reading your comments because they make this channel feel like a real worldwide learning community.
It honestly feels so warm sometimes because people from many different countries listen together and learn together.
And that is a beautiful thing, Emma, because language can connect people even when they live very far away from each other.
Exactly, Ryan. And today, we are going to talk about something very real and very human.
Yes, today's topic is how to break bad habits, and I think almost everyone struggles with this sometimes.
Oh, yes, definitely, because bad habits can feel very small in the beginning, but after some time, they become difficult to stop.
That is true, Emma, because sometimes people feel frustrated because they try to change quickly, but then they return to the same habit again.
And when that happens, many people feel disappointed in themselves, which is honestly very normal.
Very normal, Emma, because changing behavior is not easy, and our brains usually like comfort and repetition.
That is such an important point, Ryan, because many listeners may think they are weak, lazy, or not disciplined enough.
But actually, breaking bad habits is not only about discipline, because it is also about understanding yourself better.
I really like that sentence, Ryan, because understanding yourself is kinder and healthier than constantly blaming yourself.
Exactly. And today we are going to talk slowly and simply about why bad habits happen and how people can slowly change them.
And please remember, dear listeners, you do not need to change your entire life in one day.
Yes, you only need to improve little by little, because small changes repeated many times can create big results later.
Ryan, before we talk deeply about bad habits, maybe we should explain what a bad habit really is in simple words.
That is a great idea, Emma, because sometimes people hear this phrase often, but they never stop and think about its meaning.
Exactly. So, Ryan, how would you explain a bad habit in a simple and easy way for English learners?
Well, I would say a bad habit is something you do again and again, even when you know it is not helping your life.
That is very clear and simple, and I think many people can immediately understand that definition.
For example, some people stay awake very late every night, even when they know they feel tired the next morning.
Or some people spend too much time scrolling on their phone without even enjoying it anymore.
Yes, and some people eat unhealthy snacks when they feel stressed or bored instead of truly hungry.
And sometimes people complain too much, avoid exercise, waste time, or continue negative thinking patterns every single day.
Exactly. And many bad habits begin because they give temporary comfort, temporary pleasure, or temporary escape from stress.
Temporary is the important word there, because the good feeling usually doesn't last very long.
Right, because after the temporary comfort disappears, the problem often stays the same or even becomes worse.
You know, Ryan, one thing I noticed is that many people try to fight bad habits with anger and pressure.
Yes, and they say things like, "Tomorrow I will completely change my life," and then they create impossible expectations.
Exactly. And after 2 or 3 difficult days, they become exhausted and return to their old habits again.
That happens very often, Emma, because dramatic changes can feel exciting at first, but they are hard to maintain long term.
So maybe one important lesson is that slow change is usually stronger than sudden extreme change.
I completely agree with that, Emma, because lasting habits usually grow slowly, like a plant growing, little by little every day.
That image feels so peaceful, actually, because personal growth really is similar to taking care of a plant.
Yes, because plants need patience, sunlight, water, and time, and people also need patience and care while changing habits.
Ryan, do you think people sometimes expect change to happen too quickly because of social media?
Oh, absolutely, Emma, because online we often see short videos where someone suddenly transforms their entire life in 1 week.
Yes, and those videos can make people feel like healthy change should happen very fast and very easily.
But real life is usually slower and less dramatic, and honestly, that is completely okay.
I think many listeners needed to hear that today because slow progress is still progress.
Exactly. And sometimes repeating one small healthy action every day is more powerful than one big emotional decision.
Ryan, can you give an example of that?
Of course. For example, imagine someone wants to stop spending 4 hours on their phone every night.
That is very common these days, actually.
Very common. And instead of suddenly throwing away the phone forever, they could first reduce 30 minutes every night.
That sounds much more realistic and less stressful for the brain.
Exactly. Because change feels possible, people are more likely to continue instead of giving up.
I think another important thing is understanding why the habit exists in the first place.
Yes, because habits usually have emotional reasons behind them, even when people don't notice at first.
For example, some people overeat because they feel lonely, stressed, or emotionally tired after work.
And some people waste time online because they feel overwhelmed and want to escape difficult responsibilities.
So the habit is sometimes connected to feelings, not only actions.
Exactly. And that's why simply forcing yourself to stop often doesn't solve the deeper problem.
That makes so much sense, Ryan, because people often focus only on the behavior and ignore the emotions underneath.
Right. And when the emotions stay the same, the habit often returns again later.
So maybe one healthy question people can ask themselves is, what feeling am I trying to escape right now?
That is a wonderful question, Emma, because self-awareness is one of the first steps towards real change.
Self-awareness sounds like a difficult word sometimes, but the meaning is actually simple.
Yes, it simply means understanding your own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors more clearly.
And honestly, many people live very busy lives and rarely stop to observe themselves quietly.
That is true, Emma, because modern life is full of noise, screens, notifications, pressure, and constant distraction.
So sometimes people continue habits automatically without even thinking carefully about what they are doing.
Exactly, because habits become automatic after repetition, almost like the brain is using autopilot mode.
Autopilot is such a good word for this topic, actually.
Yes, because many people wake up, check their phone automatically, complain automatically, or snack automatically without conscious thought.
And breaking habits often begins when people pause for one moment and become more conscious.
That small pause can be powerful because awareness creates the opportunity to choose differently.
Ryan, I think some listeners may feel discouraged right now because they have tried many times already.
That is understandable. And if you are listening right now and feeling discouraged, please be gentle with yourself today.
Yes, because failure does not mean you cannot change, and it definitely does not mean you are hopeless.
Sometimes people need many attempts before lasting change happens, and that is a normal human experience.
Very normal, because learning and changing are not straight lines, and progress often looks messy.
That is a really nice phrase, Emma, because progress often does look messy and imperfect.
And honestly, perfection is not the goal anyway, because healthy improvement matters much more than perfection.
Exactly, because perfection creates pressure, while progress creates movement.
Wow, Ryan, that sentence sounds very powerful and comforting at the same time.
Thank you, Emma. Although honestly, I think I learned that lesson after making many mistakes myself.
Oh, really, Ryan? Did you ever struggle with a bad habit personally?
Oh yes, definitely. And one of my biggest bad habits used to be procrastination.
That is something many people struggle with, including me sometimes.
Yes, and for a long time I thought I was simply lazy, but later I realized something deeper was happening.
What did you realize?
I realized I was often afraid of failing, so I delayed important tasks because avoiding them felt safer emotionally.
Wow, that is actually very relatable because fear can hide behind many bad habits.
Exactly. And once I understood the emotional reason, I stopped attacking myself so harshly.
And did that help you change slowly?
Yes, because instead of saying I must become perfect tomorrow, I started making very small daily goals.
Small goals really do make things feel more manageable.
They do, because our brains usually respond better to realistic challenges instead of impossible pressure.
What kind of small goals did you make?
Sometimes I would simply tell myself to work for 10 minutes instead of thinking about the entire difficult task.
And starting was probably the hardest part.
Exactly, because once I started, continuing became easier most of the time.
That reminds me of something interesting, because many people wait until they feel motivated before taking action.
Yes, but motivation is unreliable sometimes because feelings change every day.
So maybe action should come first sometimes, and motivation can follow later.
I completely agree with that, Emma, because small action often creates momentum, and momentum can create motivation naturally.
Momentum is such...
Ryan, I think some people also struggle because they try to remove a bad habit without replacing it.
That is a very important point, Ryan, because empty space often pulls people back toward old behavior.
Can you explain that with an example?
Sure. Imagine someone stops watching videos for many hours every evening, but they create no new activity afterward.
Then boredom may appear very quickly.
Exactly. And the brain naturally wants stimulation, relaxation, or comfort from something.
So replacing habits can work better than simply removing habits.
Yes, because humans usually need alternatives, not only restrictions.
For example, replacing endless scrolling with reading, walking, journaling, or talking with friends.
Exactly, because positive habits can slowly fill the emotional space that bad habits once occupied.
I think journaling is especially interesting because it helps people understand their feelings more clearly.
Very true, and writing thoughts down can sometimes reveal emotional patterns people never noticed before.
And listeners do not need perfect English or perfect writing skills to journal.
Not at all, because even simple sentences about your feelings and daily experiences can be helpful.
Ryan, what about people who break a habit for some time and then suddenly return to it again?
That happens very often, and honestly, relapse is a normal part of many change journeys.
Relapse sounds like a serious word sometimes, but it simply means returning to old behavior again.
Exactly, and when relapse happens, many people immediately think all their progress disappeared completely.
But that is usually not true, right?
Right, because one difficult day does not erase weeks or months of positive effort.
That is such an important reminder for listeners who may feel disappointed after making mistakes.
Yes, because one mistake is just one moment, not your entire identity.
I really love that sentence, Ryan, because many people define themselves by their worst moments.
And that can become emotionally heavy, especially when someone already feels frustrated or ashamed.
So instead of saying, I failed again, maybe people can say, I had a difficult moment, but I can continue.
That is a much healthier mindset, because compassionate self-talk creates resilience instead of hopelessness.
Compassion toward yourself is honestly something many adults struggle to practice.
Very true, because people are often kinder to friends than they are to themselves.
That is actually very sad when you think about it carefully.
Yes, because everybody deserves encouragement, including themselves.
Ryan, I think habits are also connected to identity sometimes.
Absolutely, because people often repeat behaviors that match the story they believe about themselves.
Can you explain that more simply?
Sure. For example, if someone constantly says, I'm lazy, they may unconsciously continue lazy behavior.
Because the mind begins accepting that identity as truth.
Exactly, and changing habits sometimes begins with changing the way you see yourself little by little.
So instead of saying, I'm terrible at discipline, someone could say, I'm learning to become more disciplined.
That small language change may seem simple, but it can influence mindset in a powerful way.
Words really do affect emotions and behavior more than people realize.
They do, because the conversations we have with ourselves shape our confidence and energy every day.
Ryan, do you think accountability can also help people break bad habits?
Yes, definitely, because sharing goals with supportive people can create encouragement and responsibility.
But supportive people are important because judgment and shame usually do not help healthy change.
Exactly, because fear may create temporary action, but encouragement supports long-term growth much better.
I think many listeners probably understand that feeling deeply.
Yes, and sometimes simply having one person who believes in you can make a huge difference emotionally.
That is very true, Ryan, because humans are social and emotional creatures.
Exactly, and positive relationships can strengthen healthy habits naturally over time. Oh, wow, I just realized we already talked about so many important ideas today.
We really did. And honestly, this topic is deeper than many people first imagine.
Yes, because habits are connected to emotions, identity, environment, stress, routine, and daily life.
And that is why change takes patience, awareness, and self-kindness instead of only pressure and criticism.
I think this is a good moment for listeners to pause mentally and think about one habit they want to improve slowly.
Yes, and dear listeners, you do not need to think about 10 habits right now, because one small step is enough.
Maybe ask yourself quietly, what is one small change I can practice this week?
That question is simple, gentle, and realistic, which is exactly what healthy growth often needs.
And remember, tiny progress still matters even if nobody else notices it yet.
Absolutely, because private progress is still real progress.
That sentence feels very comforting somehow.
I think many people need comfort while changing habits because growth can feel emotionally tiring sometimes.
Yes, but listeners should remember that they are not alone in these struggles.
Not alone at all, because every human being is trying to improve something in life.
And improvement is not about becoming perfect, because perfection is impossible anyway.
Exactly. It's about becoming a little healthier, calmer, wiser, and stronger step by step.
All right, Ryan, I think this is a beautiful place to pause for today before we continue in the next part.
Yes, and in the next part, we will continue talking about practical daily methods people can use to break bad habits gently and realistically.
We will also talk about routines, emotional triggers, discipline, rewards, and how to stay motivated during difficult days. It is more about understanding yourself better and making small choices that slowly improve your daily life.
Exactly. And before we continue, we just want to say again that you should not feel ashamed if you struggle with bad habits.
Yes, because every single person has habits they want to improve, even people who look very successful from the outside.
That is very true because nobody has a perfect life, even if social media sometimes makes it look that way.
Social media can honestly create a lot of pressure sometimes because people usually show only their best moments online.
Exactly. And when people compare their real lives to somebody else's perfect online image, they can feel discouraged very quickly.
But real growth is usually quiet, slow, private, and honestly a little messy sometimes.
Yes, and messy progress is still valuable progress, which is something listeners should always remember.
Ryan, in the first part, we talked a lot about awareness and understanding emotional reasons behind habits.
Yes, and now maybe we can talk more about practical daily strategies people can actually use in real life.
I think that would help listeners a lot because many people understand their habits but still feel stuck.
Exactly. And one important strategy is creating routines that support good behavior naturally.
Routines are very powerful, actually, because humans repeat many daily actions automatically.
That is true, because our brains love patterns and repeated behaviors, especially behaviors connected to comfort and familiarity.
So, if people create healthier routines, good habits can slowly become more automatic over time.
Exactly, because repetition builds familiarity, and familiarity eventually feels normal to the brain.
Can you give a simple example of that?
Of course, imagine someone wants to stop checking their phone immediately after waking up every morning.
Oh, yes. Many people do that before even getting out of bed.
Exactly. And instead of only saying, I will stop using my phone, they can create a new morning routine.
Like stretching, drinking water, opening the window, or listening to calm music first.
Yes, because replacing automatic unhealthy actions with healthier routines creates a smoother transition for the mind.
I really like the phrase smoother transition because harsh change often feels emotionally exhausting.
Very true. And sustainable habits usually feel calm and manageable instead of extreme and painful.
Ryan, do you think mornings are important for habit building?
Absolutely, because the beginning of the day often influences the emotional tone of the entire day.
That makes sense, actually, because stressful mornings can make the whole day feel chaotic.
Exactly, while peaceful and intentional mornings can create a calmer mental state throughout the day.
But listeners should not feel pressure to create some perfect 5-hour morning routine.
Oh, definitely not, because sometimes online, people make self-improvement look like a full-time job.
Yes, and then normal people feel guilty because they cannot meditate for 2 hours while drinking green juice on a mountain.
Exactly, Emma. And honestly, most people simply need realistic routines that fit their real lives.
That small laugh felt very necessary because self-improvement content can become strangely intense sometimes.
Very intense sometimes, and people forget that ordinary, simple actions can still create meaningful improvement.
For example, sleeping a little earlier, drinking more water, or taking short walks outside.
Exactly, because small healthy actions repeated consistently often matter more than dramatic temporary effort.
Ryan, another thing people struggle with is emotional triggers.
Yes, emotional triggers are extremely important when talking about bad habits.
Can you explain emotional triggers simply for our listeners?
Of course, emotional triggers are feelings or situations that push people towards automatic, unhealthy behavior.
Like stress causing someone to overeat or sadness causing someone to isolate themselves.
Exactly, or boredom causing endless scrolling, or anxiety causing procrastination and avoidance.
So, if people understand their emotional triggers, they can prepare healthier responses in advance.
That is exactly right, because awareness creates the opportunity to respond differently instead of reacting automatically.
I think many people never stop to ask themselves what situations trigger their habits most strongly.
Very true, because many habits happen so quickly that people notice them only after the behavior already started.
So maybe one helpful practice is pausing for a few seconds before reacting automatically.
Yes, even a short pause can interrupt automatic patterns and create space for conscious decisions.
That sounds simple, but honestly, it probably takes practice.
It definitely does, because habits become deeply connected to neural patterns inside the brain over time.
Neural patterns sounds scientific, but basically it means repeated mental pathways inside the brain.
Exactly, and the more often people repeat behaviors, the stronger those pathways become.
Which means new healthy habits become easier after enough repetition.
Yes, and that is very encouraging, because the brain can adapt and learn throughout life.
Ryan, I think rewards are also connected to habits.
Oh, absolutely, because the brain naturally enjoys behaviors that provide pleasure, comfort, or relief.
Even when the behavior is unhealthy in the long term.
Exactly, because the brain often prioritizes immediate reward over future consequences.
That explains why people continue habits even when they know those habits are harmful.
Yes, because intellectually understanding something and emotionally changing behavior are two different things.
That sentence feels very important, actually.
I think so too, because many people blame themselves for knowing better but still struggling emotionally.
So instead of asking, why am I so weak, maybe they can ask, what reward is my brain seeking?
That is a wonderful question, Emma, because habits usually provide something emotionally useful in the moment.
Even unhealthy habits are often trying to solve emotional discomfort temporarily.
Exactly, and once people understand the emotional reward, they can begin searching for healthier alternatives.
For example, if someone scrolls online because they feel lonely, maybe connecting with people could help more deeply.
Yes, because the deeper emotional need might actually be connection instead of endless entertainment.
And if someone eats emotionally because of stress, maybe rest and emotional support are needed too.
Exactly, because sometimes people are not truly hungry for food, but hungry for comfort or peace.
Wow, that sentence feels emotional somehow.
I think many listeners can relate to it personally.
Ryan, do you think discipline is important for breaking bad habits?
Yes, discipline matters, but I think people often misunderstand what discipline really means.
How so?
Many people think discipline means being strict, cold, and emotionally hard on yourself all the time.
But healthy discipline can actually be gentle and consistent instead of aggressive.
Exactly, because true discipline is often about caring for your future self with repeated healthy choices.
I really love that idea because it makes discipline feel less scary and more compassionate.
Yes, because self-care and discipline are not enemies, and they can actually support each other beautifully.
That's such a healthy perspective.
Thank you, Emma. And honestly, I think people stay more consistent when change feels supportive instead of punishing.
Punishing yourself usually creates emotional exhaustion after some time.
Exactly. And exhausted people often return to unhealthy habits for comfort again.
So balance is very important during self-improvement.
Absolutely, because extreme thinking often creates unstable results.
Ryan, one phrase people say often is, I will start on Monday.
Yes, the famous Monday promise.
Why do people do that so often?
I think people like the feeling of fresh beginnings because new weeks and new months feel psychologically clean and hopeful.
But sometimes waiting for the perfect moment becomes another form of procrastination.
Exactly, because perfectionism can secretly delay action for a very long time.
So maybe listeners do not need to wait for Monday, next month, or next year.
Yes, sometimes the best moment to begin is simply now with one very small action.
Even something tiny like drinking water, cleaning one small space, or taking one short walk.
Exactly, because action creates movement, and movement builds momentum little by little.
Ryan, another common problem is all or nothing thinking.
Oh yes, that mindset causes many people to quit too early.
For example, someone eats healthy for 5 days, then eats one unhealthy meal, and suddenly thinks everything is ruined.
Exactly, and then they completely give up because they believe perfection was required.
But healthy change is not destroyed by one imperfect moment.
Not at all, because consistency matters more than occasional mistakes.
I think listeners really need to remember that during difficult days.
Yes, because difficult days happen to everyone, and expecting perfection only creates unnecessary suffering.
Ryan, what about motivation during emotionally low periods?
That is a very important question, because nobody feels motivated every single day.
Very true, and sometimes people feel emotionally tired, stressed, or mentally overwhelmed.
Exactly, and during those moments, tiny habits become especially valuable.
Tiny habits meaning very small, healthy actions that feel easy to continue.
Yes, because when energy feels low, small goals protect consistency and prevent complete collapse of routines.
Can you give examples of tiny habits?
Of course, reading one page, walking for 5 minutes, cleaning one small area, or practicing English for 10 minutes.
Those goals feel realistic even during difficult emotional days.
Exactly, because sustainable self-improvement should support your life instead of emotionally crushing you.
That sentence feels very comforting, actually.
I think many listeners can relate to it personally.
Ryan, burnout is becoming very common these days.
Yes, because many people constantly feel pressure to become more productive, successful, attractive, and efficient.
Sometimes people forget how to simply rest and exist peacefully.
Very true. And rest is not laziness, because healthy rest helps the mind and body recover emotionally.
I think listeners needed to hear that reminder today, too.
Yes, because exhausted people often struggle more with emotional habits and impulsive behavior.
Ryan, do you think sleep affects habits strongly?
Absolutely, because poor sleep affects emotional control, decision-making, stress levels, and energy.
That explains why people often make unhealthy choices when they're tired.
Exactly, because tired brains usually seek comfort, convenience,